Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Destiny video. And today is the Gen Con main event wrap-up. I'm going to have all kinds of Gen Con videos this week, but today I wanted to talk about the main event Star Wars Destiny, Saturday, Sunday if you made the top 16. Spoiler alert, maybe I did. I want to start by saying I think the tournament was run really well. Outside of the end of the tournament, the cut to 16, which seems too small to me, probably 32 would have been better. 8 rounds was pretty reasonable. It went by pretty quickly. There wasn't a ton of downtime between the rounds. Having come off of the Thursday L5R event, which was, by my estimation, a complete and utter train wreck. By most people I talked to, bad. I didn't run into anyone who said the L5R event was great. But the Destiny event was really good. What was really tough about it, though, is this was the hardest Destiny event I think we've had. I mean, Worlds had a lot of good players at it, but my goodness, Gen Con with, almost 400 people and so many good players, it was nuts, right? It's like, oh, here's all the people I test with on TTS. All the best players seem to be here. Of course, a few people were missing, and I'm sure there's other people that are amazing that I don't know. But just looking around the room and talking to people, it was amazing how many awesome players were there. Now, the downside, of course, is if you're only doing 8 rounds and you're only doing top 16 cut, 6 and 2 probably doesn't make it. And what we saw was a ton of awesome Destiny players that are known in the community hit 6 and 2 and not make it. Now, when you're playing a dice/card game like Destiny, 6 and 2 is tough, man. You only get to be Destinied once. That's tough. That's tough to do. And that really dictated my deck choice. I knew going into the weekend, I was really looking at Funkar, Rainbow, and Polmaz as my sort of favorite decks that I thought were really good. By the time I got to Saturday, it was pretty clear you needed a deck that could burst ridiculously hard, because from the cash events it had been clear that Polmaz was everywhere and that everybody had caught up to our secret Rainbow Nines deck, the deck that, I won a store championship with like 2 months ago, and I'm like, I don't know, it seems pretty good. Trying not to draw too much attention to it. By the time Saturday rolled around, that deck was not a secret. Everyone knew it was good. And so for me, it was really between Polmaz and Rainbow Nines because Funkar does not burst hard enough. And I played Polmaz on Friday all day at all the cash stuff just to kind of see what's the consistency like. I think it's a little lower than I want, a little lower than Rainbow Nines. And that's what I came away with. Of course, when you get your God scenarios, it's just amazing. But when Poe doesn't roll anything and then Maz doesn't roll focus, you just kind of go, well, maybe my Maz dice suck. I don't know. But 7 and 1 seems more difficult with Poe Maz than it did with Rainbow Nines. What makes Rainbow Nines so amazing is that it combos that explosiveness with just absolute consistency. And so that's why I chose it. All right, so let's go into the event then. You're starting the day. It's pretty late in the day, which was kind of cool. We had a lot of time to test in the morning. I hadn't been playing quite as much as I had wanted to, and I had noticed that in my testing, I had been slipping into auto-playing. And what's interesting is both Poe Maz and Rainbow Nines can be auto-played to high success. But you're not going to go 7 and 1 in a major event auto-playing any deck. So Saturday, I was able to kind of shake that. Friday, I mean. And by Saturday at the main event, I was really dialed in. I was no longer auto-playing, and I was back to like actual playing and not just testing it. And we'll return to that in a bit. All right, so the main event starts, and I sit down at my first table, and there's a very nice young man there. I don't know, somewhere around 10 or 12. And he turns over Maz, and I think, oh no, I could get rolled here by this 10 or 12-year-old by Polmaz, and I'm a little bit terrified. Losing round 1 would be devastating. And then he flips over Commando. I'm like, And then he throws Turret down. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, and then his first play was to spend 2 for an R2D2. And that's when I knew it was going to be a relaxing first game, but I could not go 6-2, right? Because probably, unless this young man is the greatest Destiny player ever, that deck is not going to win a lot of games. Not him, but that deck. And that's not to say it's a bad deck, by the way. I know very little about it, but in a meta full of Pomaz and Rainbow Nines, that deck is probably not going to get a lot of wins. So it was a good game. We had some fun. We had some chatting. He was a nice young man, and I made it through at 1-0. And then I played, I think it was the next round. It was either round 2 or 3, but I think it was the very next round. I played Steven Didion, who's a very good player. I've played him a lot online. He made the cut at Worlds, in fact, and we were both a bit miffed, right? It's like, what? I'm only 1-0 and I already have to play a really good player? Like, this is how deep this field was. So I played against Steven. He played a Phasma deck, and he got kind of wrecked. He got a turn 1 on the hunt, which is annoying, but Rainbow Nines can often just burst down Phasma if things go well on turn 2-ish, 3-ish, and then Phasma kind of crumples from there. But if Phasma has been able to get out a bunch of upgrades, the Tarkin face, the DH-117, whatever, the Baby Blaster, if they can get out all those 1-drop and 2-drop weapons early, they can really fight hard against Rainbow Nines. I feel like Rainbow Nines has an edge over it, but Steven didn't get anything like that. They just got the 1 on the hunt the whole first turn, and by the end of the second turn, it was pretty clear he had very little chance to win this thing. So I was able to kind of cruise through the first 2, which was nice. I believe the third game I played a Vader Raider. Good player, good deck. I don't remember all the details of it. I was able to squeak through. But then the next 2 games is where I start to get real tough. So round 4, I had to play Will Klein, who I know very well from online, talking, good player, smart guy, knows what he's doing. He's on Pomaz. And he goes, I don't remember exactly, but he did an insane amount of damage. It was like first turn thermal with a planetary uprising, second turn something else good with another planetary uprising, and it's kind of like, well, I guess I'm dead at this point. But I was able to have some really good rolls with 9s, and when your opponent draws the nuts, the only way to combat the nuts is with Nutsier. And so I was able to get like a rocket launcher, and then exhaust 9s, and then I'm way down the RNG territory where I needed to like come up with a resource for the rocket launcher, or I was going to have to overwrite with something else. And I was able to roll like the 4 side with a rocket launcher into 9s, rolling the resource, and Will is like ready to explode because, the dice came up exactly how I needed them to come up. So that was kind of like my rolling went well for me game. And you're going to need that in a big tournament. You're going to have that game where when your opponent does amazing things, you have to respond with equally amazing things. So I was able to slide by Will. Next round was against his playtesting partner. I believe his first name is Brian, but it's Lindbergh. And he was playing, the same Pomaz deck, and he did even dirtier things than Will. It was like thermal first turn with more damage, second turn thermal with more damage in the planetary, and I was not able to respond with the madness. Instead, I responded with sort of a normal situation and got close-ish, but I have a feeling Brian was never all that worried about it. When you can go thermal with a pile of damage and a planetary, you're probably going to win that. That's kind of what Poe is trying to do, right? Interestingly, though, I didn't see either of them running Retreat, and I don't think either of them ran it. So I personally think Retreat is like insanely good in that deck, and a must include. And I'll put a video out probably later this week about the Pomaz deck that I played over the weekend and almost played at the GenCon tournament. But so here I am through 5 rounds. I think I was at 4-1, which it's good, but there's 3 rounds left and you have to win them all. If you lose any of those, you're bounced. And so it's pretty terrifying. I mean, there's a really good chance you're going to get Destinied. It's Star Wars Destiny. Things don't always go right. So I played another Pomaz in the next round. I don't remember who was playing it, how exactly it went. I'm sure I killed Poe turn 2, like you need to if you're playing Rainbow Nines, and I was able to escape with that one. I played against a Vader Raider deck in the next round. I won that one, so I'm 6-1. That one I don't remember being particularly close either. I mean, when Rainbow Nines does its thing, it does its thing. I think I removed his dice at some opportune moments. You know, having the flanks and the doubts and things like that can be really strong against Vader, who, you know, is hoping to do things with them like Force Strike and Lightsaber Throw and that kind of stuff. And if you can remove all that sort of extra damage, it's a lot harder for Vader Raider to get there. Interestingly, I didn't play Vader Guards. I played against 2 Vader Raiders, so that was interesting. And then the last round, the win and you're in, the lose and you're out round. I played Tom Philippi. He's not really a household name in Star Wars Destiny, but I've known him for a long time. We played in the first Star Wars LCG World against each other, round 1. We split, and I remember being quite salty about it, thinking like I split with this unknown scrub guy, and he turned out to be really good. Like I think he even made the cut, and you know, during the weekend I realized how good he was. And he's a really nice guy, and so I was a bit sad to have to play somebody that I knew and liked a lot in that last round. And he was playing a really interesting deck. He was playing Kylo 9's Trooper. It's like the one FN deck that I didn't really test much, and my theory was like this: Kylo Ren sucks. That's why I didn't test it. But in this particular tournament, where close to half of the field, or at least half of the good players, right, were on Pomaz or Rainbow Nines or some deck that's running some sort of Nines weapon package, Kylo's good against pretty much every deck. Now, the problem, of course, is a good player rarely gets wrecked by Kylo. Like, you just have to discard. But if you're discarding weapons as 9s, that means less overwrites. But I was able to do stuff like, you know, do a holdout blaster into a Knuckles, into another weapon, and sort of you are able to work around that. This particular game, though, I'm gonna have to admit, Tom got Destinied. Like, I didn't roll particularly great. I rolled kind of normal, but he rolled bad. He rolled real bad. So he did not. It was not a competitive game. He got rolled pretty hard, and I felt pretty bad. I was like, oh man, Tom got Destinied in the last round. I feel bad. He lost in the winner go home round to a crazy scenario. But then he made it. He was one of the very few 6-2s that made it. I think 3 made it. Joe made it. Tom made it, and I think one other person, Joe being the winner of the tournament, by the way. So then so the day is over. The day is over, and now it's the cut the next morning. And for those of you who know me and have watched my videos before, you're probably thinking, well, Tiny made the cut. He is far from satisfied. If this dude doesn't get first, he's going to go crazy because he's a madman. And while normally that's true, this event was so big and so chock full of amazing players that I was actually really happy to make the cut. That was my goal once I realized how big and crazy this tournament was going to be. Once I realized you lose 2 and you're out, that's just insane. So for me, I'm thinking everything beyond this is gravy. I feel like I have a good shot to go far. The only problem / great thing is my 2 teammates, Mike and Joe from the Hyperloops. We bonded together and decided to test for this event for the last couple months. We're all in it, and we're all playing the same deck. And there's only 16 people, but luckily, as we look at the brackets, none of us have to play each other in the first round. Mike's even on the other side, so he doesn't have to worry about either of us. And so I'm thinking, all right, that's all right. That should work out. And then I look and I see, throughout the night I'm checking, the Reddit people are getting going and putting all the decks together, and I find out I'm playing Jabba Dooku Mill. Oh my. what made this matchup especially worrisome for me is I had actually said about 2 days before that I put out my final tier list for my Patreon subscribers, and it was a real short one because I had made a video and the hotel internet wouldn't upload it. It was really frustrating, and so I only had about 7 decks on there, and then all the decks that I used to call tier 2, I just called them tier Oblivion. So tier Oblivion is like all hero decks not named Poe and all mill decks. And what do you know? Mill deck in the top 16. I have to play it. Everybody's rooting for this person because it's an awesome mill deck. Who doesn't want to see a mill deck just pop up out of nowhere and slaughter all those 9s and Poe Maz decks? So I was the bad guy. I was not able to sleep very well. That was kind of frustrating. I get up the next morning, not feeling too good. But I get over to the hall, get a little time to wake up, and we start our top 16 match. And sure enough, it is Jabba Dooku. The internet was correct. And we played our games. And the first game, I had my battlefield, which I knew was going to be a big deal. And what was really cool is we swapped deck lists beforehand. And so a lot of the stuff I was worried about the night before, he didn't have. So I'm not saying these should go in the deck, but I was very concerned. What if he has fair trade? What if he has abandon all hope? What if he has confiscation? How do I play around? It's hard to play around all the possible threats. And by exchanging deck lists, I feel like it hurt him a lot more than me. My secret tech is I'm running 9s. He's really good. And to get to see his list was a really big deal. I was able to see he doesn't have a lot of the cards that I'm afraid of. He has a ton of removal. So much removal that I know I can't do things like ping a die with Night Sister, hope to reroll damage. It's just going to be removed instantly. Like I can, but I have to know nothing is going to sit on the table unless he's out of money. And so it made it for a really interesting matchup. I do very well with the more information, the better I do about a person's deck. So I was really excited about that. So we went into the first game. I got the battlefield, and I knew that was going to be a big advantage. What I didn't realize is that I was going to roll pretty badly, which opened the door to him killing me. He didn't come close to milling me, but he almost killed me. And when I say almost, I mean like he had a couple rolls to kill me and missed at the end of the first game. And that was a little terrifying. I wasn't too worried because I thought even if he wins, we'll use his battlefield the next game, and hopefully I'll win it. And then if I win that one, I should be fine when we're using my battlefield again. But I was worried. I was really worried when he almost killed me. He didn't quite get there, thankfully. But like he did a really good job of realizing he wasn't going to mill me and switching his focus on the Vibro Knuckles to paying dollars to do 3 damage. And that was kind of crazy. So he almost got me in the first game. The second game was quite a bit different. I imagine from his vantage point he almost had me, but I don't feel like he really did. He was able to wipe my deck fairly quickly, but at the end of the game I had like 2 flanks and He Doesn't Like You and another card, and I knew since Jabba was dead it was going to be very hard for him having to do rerolls with Dooku and having to discard cards with Dooku, and he was almost milled himself. The last card actually that was Friends in Low Places. I saved it. I'll talk about that in a minute. But once he wiped my deck, I knew I could just, whenever he rolled 2, like the 2 discard, or like he would roll the 2 discard on the Vibro Knuckles intending to pay 1 and just wipe my hand, and I would just flank it. Right? I just played around that, and it worked out really well. And the smart play I made, in my opinion, was when he had like 5 cards and I had 4 cards, and I could have just done Friends in Low Places and looked in his hand and taken out the 1 removal and then gotten wrecked by the others. I tried to wait as long as possible to do it until he had already gotten rid of a couple cards, and then I could do it, and hopefully I would hit the 1 removal piece, which I did, and then I was able to just roll out. And I think even like with my last card, I was able to re-roll or something. I don't think I had to re-roll. I think I was just able to roll out and get a pile of damage and win that one. I felt like though he milled me pretty hard. I had a pretty dominating position on the game, and I could have had a stranglehold on the game. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot to mention this. So, in that second game, and turn 2, I did what Bala decks do, or what Nines decks do, and I bursted. And Jabba had 1 damage on him, and I rolled 9, and I had 1 die left that didn't have damage. I think it was like Night Sister die or something, and she had, I think, no damage on her. I pinged her 6 times. 6 times for a 1 in 3 chance of rolling her die, even into 1 damage, and I killed that Jabba. Nope, I missed all 6 rerolls. I was not that happy. On the one hand, I felt like I had a really good position already, having Jabba down to 1, but Jabba did have fast hands, and so he was going to be able to, he had already claimed, so he'd be able to roll them out and immediately resolve them and do something, whether that's, my resources gone, depriving me of a weapon, or whether that's ripping cards out of my hand, whatever. But in the end, I was able to get there. And a lot of that was recognizing what this matchup was, right? I really tried to grow wide with my weapons rather than just continually overwrite Nine's weapons and boundless and practically mill myself. I played it a lot slower and more carefully and more plottingly, and I think that worked out really well. However, we transition into the round of 8. I'm playing Joe, who, for those of you who don't know, Joe is from the Hyperloops. He is the winner of the tournament. I've been playing Rainbow Nines for quite some time, but Joe has been playing Rainbow Nines quite a bit longer and much more exclusively than me. I was worried that cargo hold might be a problem for the deck. I was worried that a number of other things might be a problem for the deck, stuff like Phasma. And so I tried a whole bunch of stuff, whereas Joe, also did try stuff. But man, this guy's been playing Rainbow Nines. He's won like 7 store championships with this deck. He does not mess around. He is the Rainbow Nines guy. And in our group testing, like, he was in charge of Rainbow Nines. I was kind of the fun car guy for a while because I was still convinced that beat Rainbow Nines, and it did for a while. And then after we kind of went back and forth with different changes, we were able to put Rainbow Nines ahead. But I knew it was going to be tough. Joe's good. He is better than me with the deck, and so I was a little worried about that. Also, he was in a better headspace. He had just played a mirror, whereas I had played against a mill deck. And so it was like, I'm having to readjust, and he's just like, let's do this. I'm ready. So the biggest problem, though, and this should be a video all unto its own. When you are playing in a top 8 of a major event, lock it down. So, like I said, early in the tournament, I was on autopilot, I was in testing mode, and I was playing kind of sloppy, and to be honest, not the quality that I want to. And in this game, I found myself slip back into playtest mode. Like, I'm joking around with Joe. It's like we're back, all weekend playing, testing stuff, and I just did not lock it down well enough. And I don't think it would have mattered. He got boundless in both games and just completely blew me out. It was really good. One was a turn 1 boundless, which was insane, and I think the other one was a turn 2 boundless. And I'm not sure that I had an answer to that. But I will say this. I didn't present my best game, and that's what frustrates me, right? Like, I have no problem losing to who I think is probably better than me at the deck, and the guy who won the whole thing, right? Like, it's a teammate. He won the whole thing. That's awesome. I can lose to that guy. But I was definitely frustrated with my own performance, and so that's just a word of caution. Don't slip into that, even if it's your friend, even if it's someone who's being friendly. Lock it down when you're in a top 8. But so in the end, the team Tiny Loops, as we called ourselves, Mike and Joe got 1 and 2, and then because Joe and I paired up, I got top 8. But I'm pretty satisfied. I certainly would have liked to be the champion, but I feel like Joe is a very deserving champion of this particular meta. I think he was the earliest one to really have a single-minded focus on this deck and just lock this deck in for months. And as I've said in all of my podcasts, if you want to be successful at a major event, the best way to do it is 2 months out, lock in a deck, and rep it. You rep the heck out of that deck. This allows you to find those little changes you want to make. It allows you to understand every single nuance of every single matchup. And I didn't do that. And to be perfectly frank, going into this weekend, I was really worried that it might be a complete train wreck, because that's just not that's the way I operate, and I didn't do that. And I was kind of freaking out, like, oh my goodness, I'm real good with 3 decks, but I have not reached mastery level with any of them. And by the time Saturday rolled around, I felt much more confident about both Pomaz and Rainbow Nines and how to combat both of them than I was going into the weekend. That's one of the cool things about, spending the whole weekend playing Destiny. I heard there was a con going on. I didn't see this con. I just played Destiny for like 4 straight days, and it was amazing. Okay, so to wrap up, GenCon Destiny main event was really awesome. These were the best players in the world. I'm just, like, if you look at the top 16, it was like me, Joe, Mike, Taxter, Lindbergh, Tom, I'm forgetting other people, but just all these names that we knew were awesome at Destiny. Like, Taxter got second at Worlds and top 4 again at Gen Con. Anyone who says that guy isn't good is an idiot. He top 4'd with Phasma. Now, Phasma's good, but Phasma in this particular meta is not as good as Pomaz and Rainbow Nines. And what does that mean? That means Taxter, or Nick, I just call him Taxter, it's just freaking amazing. So congrats to everyone who made the top 16. So sorry to all of you awesome 6-2 players that didn't make the cut. I know how frustrating that must have been. And it was a great event. FFG, good job overall running it. I will say one other negative thing about the OP with FFG. I'm pretty sure there was supposed to be a medal ceremony where everyone in the top 16, they put medals on you like at the end of New Hope, and it was going to be really cool. And they forgot the medals. So there was no medal ceremony. So now I'm going to have to make a video of, like, my wife putting the medal on me and humming the song while she does it. But I don't think she's going to do that. So no medaling ceremony for me. Boo-hoo. Again, congrats to Joe. And congrats to the Tiny Loops and Hyper Loops. We got it done. And it was a lot of fun. And to everyone out there who I met, it was awesome. Thanks, guys. I had a great time. And I'll see you next time on Tiny Grams Games.